Buenas tardes or good morning, depending on where you are in the country, right? So I am Rachel Gonzalez Henson. I'm the Senior Vice President for Western Operations for the National Association of Community Health Centers. And on behalf of the Ag Worker Access Campaign Task Force, bienvenidos, welcome to this webinar. We are so excited to have this webinar where we're going to have the opportunity to hear from our colleagues who share the same passion for serving the agricultural worker families that the health center staff does. Our campaign is geared toward increasing access to healthcare and other necessary and very valuable resources for the ag worker families. And our task force members include staff from community health centers, from PCAs, the Head Start programs, the Migrant Ed program, and other partner agencies throughout this country and in the health center movement. And it is only with the work of these partners that we are able to provide the best care that we can to these agricultural workers and doing it in a way that's in a holistic approach, and just as important, doing it in a way that is sensitive to their needs and to the cultures, right? At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Sylvia Partida and introduce her. Sylvia is an esteemed colleague, and as you know, is the CEO of the National Center for Farmworker Health. And along with NCFH and NAC, she and I have been sort of trying to spearhead the task force work, and really appreciate all the work that they have been doing. Sylvia, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Rachel. And like Rachel said, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. I have the pleasure to introduce our speakers today, and I will start with Jeremy Donlinger. So Jeremy is a federal project officer for the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration. Jeremy works for the ETA Region 3 office located in Atlanta, Georgia. Region 3 serves the southeastern states of Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. As a federal project officer, Jeremy provides technical guidance and oversight to ensure that American job centers provide all required career training and business services authorized by the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Jeremy also serves as the regional monitor advocate for migrant and seasonal farm workers, helping farm workers receive equitable career services in all ETA Region 3 states. Prior to joining the Employment and Training Administration, Jeremy was U.S. Peace Corps volunteer in El Salvador. As a volunteer, he designed and implemented projects in waste management, water purification, and reforestation. So Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us. Also joining Jeremy is Timmy Dudley. Timmy Dudley is a workforce analyst for the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration in the Office for Workforce Investment on the National Monitor Advocate team since August 2020. In this role, he provides support to regional and state monitor advocates and the monitor advocate system as a whole. Prior to his current role, Timmy was a technical project manager for ICF Consulting, where he worked with the Department of Labor, Department of Health and Human Services, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and Blue Shield of California Foundation on various evaluation, policy, and technical assistance projects. Timmy is a graduate of Georgia State University and American University. And finally, our third speaker is Yuman Luis Chang. Luis is a resource associate at the Connecticut Department of Labor in the Performance and Accountability Department. He took up his current role as Connecticut State Monitor Advocate for migrant and seasonal farm workers in 2013. His prior experience at CTDOL includes unemployment insurance claim examination and work authorization. Yuman is a graduate of the University of Connecticut with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. So thanks to all of our speakers, and I will hand it over to them. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sylvia. We'll get started by going over today's agenda. We're going to do an overview of the employment services and farm worker outreach services. we'll get into the minor advocate system as a whole, the role of state minor advocates, and then also talk a little bit about the opportunities for collaboration and how the minor advocate system can assist health centers and other ag working serving agencies. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers as well. Let's start with some round robin introductions, and you can use the chat to put these in there. We have people from the National Minor Advocate Team, regional minor advocates, state minor advocates, health center staff, and other agricultural work serving agencies. If you could just put your state, your title, your organization, and to give us a little background, name one task that you're working on this week so we can get a little bit of what you have going on. So please do that in the chat box at this time. All right, we see some people putting this information in there. And I'll also just share mine as it was state. I live in Maryland, right outside of DC. The title workforce analyst, as was said, I work for the Department of Labor. And right now, currently just working on some of our equity ratio indicators and minimum service level indicators and sharing that data with our state minor advocates and regional minor advocates that we'll share with them quarterly on how their state is doing on serving the migrant seasonal farm workers in their state. So that's mine as an example, and you guys can share them in the chat. And please look at everyone else's so you can get an idea of what everyone else is doing as well. And I won't hold too long here, but continue to do that. We'll move forward to the next slide. And we can go back to these in a little bit as well. And I will pass it over to Jeremy for our first knowledge check.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So we'll start here with a poll question just to kind of kick things off. So the question is, where can somebody go if they are unemployed, underemployed, looking for work, or interested in changing their career? And the three choices are an American Job Center, a career center, or a one-stop center. So please select which answer you think is correct, and then we'll go over the results.
I'll give everyone a few more seconds to respond, and then I'll close the poll and share the results.
All right, looks like we got a pretty even spread between the three choices. So actually, this is a trick question. Everyone is correct. American Job Centers are also known as career centers and are also known as one-stop centers. They're branded in different ways across the country. States have the flexibility to decide in their branding. So depending on the state you're in, you might see any one of those names. And it's good to recognize all of them because essentially they all mean the same thing. All right, next slide. All right, so before we discuss the Monter Advocate System, we like to provide some information about the services provided at American Job Centers. So these services are funded through the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration, and they include, well, throughout the country, there's the AJCs. They provide free help to job seekers for a variety of career and employment related needs. Across the country, there are nearly 2,400 AJCs, And they include services such as resource rooms with phones, computers, and free internet. Resource rooms allow customers to independently search and apply for jobs or create a resume. Many centers have employment workshops to help job seekers. Examples of these workshops include resume preparation, networking, interviewing, and basic career computer skills. The idea with these and all the services there are really just to help folks obtain employment. They also host hiring events. These include career fairs and targeted recruitment events where job seekers can meet local employers and apply for open positions. Labor market information is also provided about in-demand occupations and also wage information in the local area. The staff that work at the AJCs, they also provide some staff-assisted services, which include job search assistance, career counseling, where counselors assess customers' job skills and interests, identify barriers to employment, and provide advice on necessary steps to reach an individual's career goals. They're also good sources for information and referrals to available supportive services. These include supplemental nutritional assistance program, financial assistance, Medicaid, English as a second language classes, childcare. Quite a few different supportive services are available there. Another good service they refer to is the National Farmworker Jobs Program, which provides employment and training services to eligible farm workers and their dependents. And lastly on this slide, referrals to training services. So in some cases, these centers fund occupational training when customer's assessment determines that that customer is a good fit, that they would benefit from that occupational training. Next slide. So in addition to the services at the AJC, at some American job centers, the staff provide Msfw outreach services. So these centers are typically located in rural areas with high levels of seasonal farm work. At these centers, management will assign staff to provide farm worker outreach services where the farm workers work, live, and gather. Examples of this services include informational services, which is information about the services at the one-stop center, pretty much all the services I just ran through. Also, during outreach, they'll provide information about organizations serving Msfws in the area. So this can include local providers such as the community health centers, migrant education, Head Start programs, legal services, and other supportive services that farm workers could benefit from. They also provide information about farm worker rights, a basic summary of farm worker rights in relation to the terms and condition of employment. So a lot of farm workers are on job orders, and the outreach workers, they'll go over the content of those job orders with the farm workers and make sure that the farm workers really understand their employment rights according to those job orders. Also, outreach workers provide on-site services. So during outreach, the outreach staff encourage farm workers to visit their local AJC, but sometimes a farm worker may not be interested in visiting, or it might be difficult to get there. So when this occurs, the outreach worker can provide some on-site services. These include basic employment services such as preparing an application for employment services, referrals to jobs for any open positions, and referrals to supportive services. They can also assist farm workers with filing a complaint. So Msfw outreach staff, they are able to take any complaint that a farm worker has in writing and refer that complaint to either the local AJC or to an appropriate enforcement agency for processing. And also they can provide transportation assistance. So as needed, outreach staff provide assistance in making appointments and arranging transportation for farm workers or their dependents to the AJC or other appropriate agencies in the area. And with that, I will pass it on. I believe, is it you, Timmy, or Luis?
Yes. So we just want to ask a few questions, and please do put this in the chat as well. When you are putting into the chat, make sure your two is to all panelists and attendees, so the other attendees do see your messages as well, and just not to all panelists. But do you know what a state minor advocate is? Do you know what the state minor advocate system is? Obviously, for our state minor advocates who are on the call, you don't need to answer this because you're obviously aware. And then also, we'd like for you to answer any questions about the minor advocate system or state minor advocates that you may have, so we can make sure that we answer them when we start going over those. So in the chat now, just please insert any questions that you have about state minor advocates or the minor advocate system before we begin talking about them. Yeah, and let us know how much you know currently.
Hey, can I make a comment? Timmy, you mind if I make a comment?
Sure.
So I understand, good afternoon, everybody. I do understand that many of you have had a chance to check out Harvest of Shame. So if that documentary comes to mind about any questions you may have for us, please, by all means, feel free.
Thank you, Luis. And I'll try to not have as much feedback. I believe that might be my headset. So we've got some items coming in. Liam says he only knows the basics. I love to learn more about SMAs and could partner with farm worker health clinics and orgs that serve them. Okay. And we'll continue to put that in, and thank you, and we'll get back to these and make sure that we've answered them throughout our conversation. All right, we're going to show the very beginning of our state minor advocate roles and responsibilities training module to give you guys a little bit of what's in there, and then we'll talk about that a little bit.
Welcome to the State Monitor Advocate Roles and Responsibilities Training Module. This module is intended to provide State Monitor Advocates, also known as SMAs, information on federal regulations and recommended procedures for ensuring services are provided to migrant and seasonal farm workers, also known as Msfws, in a way that is qualitatively equivalent and quantitatively proportionate to non-Msfws. By the end of this training, you will be able to 1. Understand the Monitor Advocate system and how it came to be. 2. Understand how the Monitor Advocate system serves Msfws and agricultural employers. And 3. Describe the 3 primary responsibilities of the State Monitor Advocate. To move forward, you can use your mouse to click anywhere on the slide or use your Enter key. At the bottom of the slide is the player control bar. The buttons from left to right are Play Pause, Back, Forward, Play Bar, shows your progress through the course, and also lets you scrub the playhead to move back and forth through the slides. Audio on/off, closed captioning, and exit. If you move your mouse over these buttons, a tooltip will remind you of their use. If you want to skip forward or back, or move to another slide before the audio completes, you can select the slide listed in the table of contents on the left. The table of contents also shows the duration of the audio for each slide. In the early 1970s, a group of farm worker advocacy organizations sued the U.S. Department of Labor for discriminatory practices against farm workers. At that time, when a farm worker walked into a one-stop, he or she was often only referred to jobs in agriculture. They were not offered the full range of employment and training services, and sometimes they were even referred to other buildings which only served farm workers. An investigation was conducted and concluded that indeed such practices were discriminatory. Based on the lawsuit, in 1974 a court order, known as the Judge Ritchie Court Order, mandated that the Department of Labor institutionalize a system to ensure farm workers receive services on a basis that is qualitatively equivalent and quantitatively proportionate to all other job seekers. As the name suggests, the Monitor Advocate System is a system and not a program. This system is institutionalized into the very bones of the Department of Labor and the state workforce agencies, and is not created or funded through Congress. The department drew upon the authority of the Wagner-Peiser Act to codify the mandates of the court order. Therefore, the system is supported by Wagner-Peiser Act state merit staff who are funded with Wagner-Peiser funds. And your job as the state monitor advocate within the monitor advocate system is very important. Now let's delve into what the monitor advocate system does. The monitor advocate system exists at the national, regional, and state levels. Specifically, the monitor advocate system is charged with 1. Ensuring equitable services for farm workers. 2. Managing the employment service and employment-related law complaint system. 3. Implementing and sustaining a farm worker outreach program. 4. Providing farm workers notification of available employment services and workers' rights. 5. Facilitating the agricultural recruitment system for U.S. workers. 6. Monitoring the provision of services through the employment service at the local, state, regional, and national levels. 7. And lastly, monitor advocates are responsible for ensuring that services provided are in accordance with federal regulations and the appropriate acts. The monitor advocate system supports the needs of farm workers by 1. Collecting information about farm worker needs, characteristics, and concerns to improve the provision of services to farm workers. 2. Collaborating with a broad range of stakeholders, including community and employer-based organizations. 3. Ensuring that farm workers are serviced equitably through the one-stop centers, currently branded as American Job Centers. 4. Producing annual service assessments and analyses to promote a better understanding of services to farm workers and to highlight special efforts and accomplishments by states in serving them. And 5. Ensuring that all legal protections are afforded to farm workers and that their complaints are followed through to resolution. The Monitor Advocate System supports the needs of agricultural employers by connecting them with 1. Willing and able workers through the agricultural recruitment system. 2. Outreach workers and other agricultural organizations to share information on news, best practices, and addressing challenges. 3. Other state and federal resources. And 4. The one-stop delivery system. Now let's dig deeper into the responsibilities of the state monitor advocates in maintaining the monitor advocate system. As a state monitor advocate, you have 3 primary responsibilities. 1. Monitoring. 2. Advocating. And 3. Reporting. Each of these responsibilities has many components. The following slides will describe each responsibility.
And that's where we'll stop at. So it gave an overview of the role of the National Monitor Advocate System, also what it does for farm workers, and then also for employers as well. And you can continue to watch this. We'll share this link with you guys in the PowerPoint. But let's talk a little bit more about these items. And to do that, I'm going to go to our Monitor Advocate one-pager. So I'll share this directly with you. So in 1972, advocacy groups filed suit against the U.S. Department of Labor alleging discrimination practices against farm workers, and the Judge Ritchie court order was in 1974, as you saw in the module that we just watched. But a few things about the monitor advocate system. We have 59 monitor advocates. Over 2,400 American job centers, hundreds of outreach workers, thousands of employers, millions of farm workers. The minor advocate system has been active for over 40 years. It's helped farm workers ensuring they have equal access to career and training services and workforce protections. It's a little information about farm workers as well as it's a dangerous industrial sector. Farm workers 20 times more likely to suffer from heat-related death. So all of these things are things that we want to highlight in this one pager that we share. The average annual wages for farm workers is 70,000, which is under poverty line, which is 25,100. And we had 3,135 violations ranging from wage theft to human trafficking that have been processed through our complaint system. And outreach workers have contacted over 1.5 million farm workers about their rights and protections. And state workforce agencies have referred over 380,000 farm workers to employment. So that's just a little bit about all that the minor advocate system has done. I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. I'm going to pass it over to Luis to talk a little bit about the role of the National Minor Advocate System and also state minor advocates.
Thank you, Timmy. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for having us today. It's our pleasure to be here to talk to you guys about the state minor advocate system. And also, I do want to, thank everyone here, along with all your staff at all the community health centers for everything that you're currently doing, everything you've done in the past, and all the vaccinations that you guys are getting out there on our farm workers' arms, and all the education that goes along with it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't thank you enough for that. We're really, looking forward to having a better season than last. So, with that being said, Timmy and Jeremy have gone over some of our responsibilities, some of our functions, and I just wanted to go over a couple more slides with you guys to show you. To give you a little idea of the responsibilities. Again, we're sharing all the information with you along with slides and the video as well. So from a national or regional minor advocate perspective, it's slightly but not much different from the state perspective, okay? We all have these very same responsibilities. It's just that, the people that we deal with might be at a different level, depending on whether you are at the national, regional, or state level. But creating workforce development system policy, it's something that is done both at the national and the regional level, as well as the state level. We review the workforce development system and to see how it's impacting our workers and our MSFWs. Again, we always have to keep an eye on both because we're always looking for that parity of the services being provided. We're looking for equity and parity of the services being provided. Again, this is why the entire state minor advocate system is in place to begin with, right? The national and regional offices do provide the employment and training notices to us, which are official and also training and employment guidance letters. And that's what we utilize as guidance for any initiatives from the national or regional office. The technical assistance that's provided, again, that can work from the top level down, right? The national office can provide the technical assistance to the regional office, and the regional office can provide the technical assistance to each one of the states that each regional office has responsibility over. Okay. Hang on one second. My computer's lagging. This is why. Here we go. So as far as monitoring and oversight, state minor advocates at the state level, again, going back to that parity and equity of services, okay? we review the data within the state workforce system to ensure that the services are being provided in that manner. Again, equity and parity. And we do that by looking at the data of non-MSFWs versus the data of MSFWs. Okay. So not only do we review the data, but we also have to review the services that are being provided to workers and the manner that it's being provided to workers. So that monitoring and oversight includes reviewing not just the workforce system, but also going to the American job centers and making sure things such as posters and the services are all available to MSFWs and non-MSFWs. Okay. After the monitoring, which also includes going out to the field with outreach staff and observing, their work on the field, we provide a report to the state and to the regional and national office. The regional office monitors each state within that region as well to ensure that the state itself is providing the services correctly to all workers. And then finally, my favorite part is farm worker advocacy. This is where we get to work with, if you're at the state level, you're working with stakeholders that are directly impacting either the workforce or the workers themselves. From the regional standpoint, what I've tried to do always is try to involve the regional state monitor advocate in our initiatives out in advocacy, whether that's something like an example of getting somebody involved in the advisory board for the Connecticut River Valley Farmworker Health Program, to bringing them out to different events, different outreach events for the farm workers. Next slide. So here you can see some of the responsibilities that we've already mentioned as part of the video and some of the prior slides as well. Giving you an idea of, with a little more detail on what we do or what are part of our responsibilities day in and day out. So again, we're conducting reviews of ongoing services, practices, and laws and regulations to migrant seasonal farm workers out there, okay, as well as reviewing the employment services offices. Okay, your AJCs or one-stop centers, American Job Centers or one-stop centers. Okay, and we are, we have to do this on a regular basis. What I do in Connecticut, for example, is I rotate between regions, and each season I will do a review of one of the regions and all the offices involved within that region in Connecticut. So along with all these different factors that are reviewed, okay, and then all the suggestions that we provide after each review, corrective action plans and whatnot, the regional office does the same thing with each state when they monitor the state and the services being provided through the state. Okay. There's a complaint system in place as well for everybody to officially put in their complaints, as well as apparent violations. And it doesn't have to be from the worker. Okay. An apparent violation can be observed by anybody and reported by anybody. Okay. We also have to ensure that there's designations where we take a look at the number of MSFWs in an area, and we there's metrics that may designate a local office or American Job Center as a significant migrant seasonal farm worker office, as well as metrics for the state to be considered a significant state for migrant seasonal farm workers. Significant states do have slightly higher requirements to meet as far as the metrics that we look at each quarter. So then besides that, we also provide summaries at the end each year of the services that we've provided and all the work that we've done to help out MSFWs, as well as an agricultural outreach plan that we formulate every 4 years, whereby we talk about the agriculture within the state, the workers, what kind of trends we see, and how and where and when we are to be providing services to all our migrant seasonal farm workers within the state. So these reports are submitted to both the state administrator and the regional office for review. Okay. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Luis. And we'll get into our knowledge check number 2. Which service below is not an MSFW outreach service? And that's information about employment services and local supportive services, information about farm workers' rights, information about local unions representing farm workers, basic on-site employment services, transportation assistance, and then also assistance with taking and processing a complaint. So which one of those is not an MSFW outreach service? I'll give you a second. Okay, and the correct answer is C. Information about local unions representing farm workers. That is not a part of the role of state minor advocacy and is actually not allowed. So about unions. So we'll go to the next knowledge check. Which of the following are SMA roles or responsibilities? Oversight of monitoring of employment services provided to MSFWs, review of employment service policies, advocating to improve services for MSFWs, and processing and follow up on complaints made on behalf of MSFWs, or E, all of the above. And we'll give you a second for that one as well. And I think all of these were covered in some way in the slides previous, so if one sticks out to you. Looks like you guys are good. E, all of the above. So all of these are roles and responsibilities of the state minor advocate. So great job, guys. We'll move on to the next slide. And I believe I'll pass this on to Jeremy.
All right. So next, we'd like to discuss some opportunities for collaboration and how the Monitor Advocate System SMAs can assist health centers and other ag worker serving agencies. So on this slide, we just highlight a few examples. So the first one, mobile clinics. These are good opportunities to coordinate outreach and service delivery for farm workers. I'm aware of some states where the SMA and also MSFW outreach workers will go on site when a community health center has a mobile clinic to collaborate, so that while farm workers there receiving those health services, the outreach workers or the SMA can also provide services available through employment services. Another good example for collaboration, opportunity for collaboration, are the quarterly meetings between SMAs and the Nfjp grantees. So each state, they both have SMAs, and they also have what are called the National Farm Worker Jobs Program grantees. So they meet quarterly, these two entities, to discuss service strategies to farm workers. ETA requires that the SMA and the Nfjp grantee meet quarterly, but we also encourage other MSFW service providers to attend those meetings and collaborate. So in your states, I would encourage you to reach out to your SMA and even Nfjp grantee contacts, see when they're meeting, and see if you can jump on board for those meetings and collaborate in that way. Lastly here, another example are the migrant education parent engagement events. So these typically occur at the beginning or end of a school year, or when migrant workers are arriving or departing from the area. Usually, it's get-togethers to invite the parents to go over the curriculum, and just kind of welcoming events too, but just, again, another great opportunity for collaboration between Migrant Ed, the community health centers, and the SMA. Next slide, please. And now we'd like to turn it to the audience, state monitor advocates in particular. If we have some on this meeting, and if you'd like to share any upcoming collaborative events, please do so. I know you can share in the chat. Sylvia, do you know, can participants unmute themselves and share as well?
Yes, they can. If they want to share, if they want to go ahead and raise their hand, and then I can unmute them if I see their hand raised.
Okay, great.
Jeremy, this is Sylvia P. But while we're waiting for that, there were a few questions on the chat that perhaps we can entertain. There's one is, where can the state and regional reports be found?
So I believe that's referring to the monitoring reports. So in general, those monitoring reports, they are internal reports just to help the state workforce agencies improve their services to farm workers. So they're not shared or really publicized to the general public. There are some reports that USDOL does publish about farm workers and their activities. So one good example is the National Agricultural Workers Survey. I believe I got that right. USDOL conducts that survey periodically. I believe it's every 5 years, and that contains a lot of good information about the demographic makeups of migrant and seasonal farm workers nationwide. I did take notes on the other questions too. I believe there was one about what is the role with H2a workers. So that question was asked earlier when we were discussing employment services. So for employment services, for H2a workers or undocumented workers, the state doesn't offer those services to those workers in general because they couldn't benefit from those services. With that said, there are services that H2a workers and undocumented workers can benefit from that the outreach workers provides information about during outreach, such as information about the complaint system and being able to take a complaint. I believe, Luis, you had mentioned how workers, regardless of their immigration status, are protected by federal labor laws. So definitely those services are available to all workers, regardless if they're H2a, undocumented, or domestic workers. And then other partners, information about other services are provided to all workers as well, because I believe, migrant education, the community health centers, they can serve those H2a and undocumented workers. Were there any other questions, Sylvia, that I missed, or were those the?
There was one question asking, how does the job training help undocumented migrant workers?
Right, so job training, that wouldn't be a service that would be offered to someone who didn't have authorization to work, because it wouldn't be, a prudent use of federal funds to offer a service that that person couldn't benefit from due to their immigration status. But like I said, they could offer the other services, information about services, or information about the complaint system and assistance with making a complaint as needed.
Yep, exactly. And just to add to that, Jeremy, for example, the Nfjp, or National Farmworker Job Program, as Jeremy said, they can't offer the employment services that are offered through that program, but they would be able to offer some other supportive services that the program does have. So H2As can't receive those training employment services, as Jeremy said, because of their immigration status, but there are other services that may be able to be provided through the ES employment offices and through the National Farmworker Job Program, and then obviously through our outreach workers in the monitor advocate system.
And from a SMA perspective, I know that we cannot offer the services that we're describing here for employment and training, but it doesn't stop us from advocating for undocumented people as farm workers. Okay, get out there. You can talk about them as much as you want. Talk about them as farm workers, and that's how you can advocate for them. Okay, it does not stop us from being able to advocate for them and to provide them the protections with the labor laws.
Definitely. Thank you, Luis. So I don't know if we had any other state minor advocates sharing any events upcoming, but are there any more questions as well, Sylvia, that you have?
There was another question that may be related to what y'all were just speaking of now. How do local programs overcome immigrant fears of accessing public services? It's in the Q&A feature.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Anybody want to touch this?
I would say the best way is through engagement, being, having outreach workers get into the field, speaking with the workers, and meeting them where they are. I think the more folks get out in the field and then provide those services, and the more engaged they are meeting with the farm worker community, that will kind of alleviate those fears.
I would add that the frequency also of the visits helps a lot. If you're just showing up once every 2 years to the farm, you're not going to get the trust from the workers to talk to you, right? But if they see you out there all the time, okay, and they start talking to you, they'll get comfortable enough to disclose something that may be bothering them or maybe troubling them. So that's the key, just as with any relationship, right? It's getting to know the people or the workers better, and getting them to entrust you with some, at many times, some very sensitive information. And I wanted to add another comment to my prior comment about undocumented workers. This is to all USMAs out there. Please don't forget that these organizations that we're getting you connected with today, all the community health centers and the National Farmworker Health Center for Farmworker Health, they can help undocumented workers, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Don't always think that, oh, just because we're not able to offer employment training services that we're not able to help these farm workers out. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. And I did
get
see,
one more, Timmy, if you
Okay.
wanted to answer another question. How do you define MSAWs themselves? Migrant and
So-
seasonal agricultural workers. Is it the same as HRSA's definition?
so we use Msfw, which is migrant seasonal farm worker, and that's going to be defined as migrant or seasonal is going to be of a temporary nature that their farm work is, and then we have a definition for what farm work activities that coincide within that, and then the seasonal portion of that definition, or not seasonal, but the migrant portion is whether or not they have to travel overnight to get to their work site or travel to get to the work site. So, and we do have a definition that may differ slightly from the MSAW definition on how we count migrant seasonal farm workers, but the key is that they've been involved in farm work within the last 12 months, and then that they've also been that they're either of a migrant, that they're of a seasonal nature that the farm work is, and then we also want to know whether or not they're a migrant farm worker as well. So there's a little more details in it, but that's kind of the gist of how we classify someone as an MSFW within our monetary advocacy system.
I did see one question about local outreach and forming relationships, and or wait, no, what is the difference between the state monetary advocate complaint system and OSHA's? So the complaint system, what's called the employment service and employment related law complaint system, is a complaint system that is maintained by the American Job Center and the staff at the American Job Center at the local level, and at the state level by the state workforce agency. And what they provide is an opportunity for anyone to make a complaint in writing. And then, well, just to put an example, for an employment related law complaint, say an OSHA complaint or a wage and hour division complaint, you know, something, a wage related complaint, something the wage and hour division would enforce. If a complainant makes a complaint through the ES complaint system, an outreach worker or a career center staff will take that complaint in writing for the farm worker and forward it to wage and hour division or OSHA or the appropriate enforcement agency, and provide status updates to that farm worker for their complaint and follow up on a regular basis until that complaint reaches resolution. So it provides like an extra level of assistance, I suppose, in processing a complaint and making sure that the farm worker, you know, that their complaint is received by the enforcement agency and processed, and that the determination is communicated to them.
Thank you, Jeremy. And we'll move forward so we can get through all of the slides.
I don't know if we got to any events. I shouldn't.
I don't think so.
Chat here. We had one here, actually, statewide coalition meeting. The Fairness for Farm Workers Coalition invites all stakeholders and interested parties to a statewide coalition meeting to learn how you can help support the fairness for farm workers. So sounds like a good one. That's in Massachusetts. I don't see any others, but if you do have others you'd like to share, just feel free to pop them in the chat. And with that, I'll turn it over to Timmy or Luis.
Luis. Luis, you may be on mute.
Sorry about that. Okay, so we have an upcoming webinar number 3 in the series of 3, today being number 2. And in the upcoming webinar, we're going to talk a lot more about, you know, building these relationships amongst the different stakeholders and parties involved, in providing services to the farm workers. Okay, this will take place on Thursday, June 10th, between 3:30 and 5 p.m. We did try to get that between 3 and 4:30. We do apologize about that, but we couldn't do that due to the scheduling. Again, we're going to be highlighting the work that we're doing here in the Connecticut River Valley in cooperation with the Connecticut River Valley Farmworker Health Program. And we're also going to be highlighting the work being done in Arizona through Adelante and the State Monitor Advocate in Arizona. We'll have everybody here, all the State Monitor Advocates, and hopefully we see the majority of you return as well for this third webinar. And it'll be, again, it'll be presented by Amy Shepard from the Connecticut River Valley Farmworker Health Program, along with myself for this area. And you will have a representative from Adelante presenting along with the same Monitor Advocate in Arizona. We will be the four major presenters for this next webinar coming up. The link is available here, and we will be emailing everybody as well. Next slide. And here are the links to the information and the resources that we've mentioned today and that we've utilized for everybody to have. And again, this will all be available as part of the presentation as well.
One thing I would definitely like to highlight is the contact and directory, which has every state monitor advocate in there. So if you want to reach out to your state monitor advocate, you can find their name, email, and phone number in that contact directory link and connect with them. So that's the one I wanted to highlight.
Thank you, Timmy.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to open this up for any final questions or concerns. And again, if you have questions outside of the presentation, but that you feel have to do with the material we presented, and again, if you have any questions about the documentary I mentioned earlier, please feel free to go ahead.
Okay.
So thank you so much. I see one question. This is Sylvia. I see one question that came up that I think that many people would be interested in. And it says, is there a website where we can find SMA activities for each state?
Unfortunately, I don't think there is. That's a great idea, though. So I'm thankful for the person who suggested it, and maybe something we could look into in the future.
That definitely is a great idea. And as Jeremy said, that would be great to look into, but currently we don't. But on the previous page, we do have our monitor advocate system employment administration page, which has a lot of our services, other resources in the contact directory, and then our technical assistance page, which has some of the technical assistance you saw today, the overview and fact sheets of the monitor advocate system, the training module which you can continue watching, and also our National Monitor Advocate annual reports are there as well. So a lot of information is on these two pages, but we don't have a current events page for each state. So, but we will consider that, and that's a great idea.
And again, don't forget what we're promoting here. The collaboration that we're promoting here amongst the agencies should get each and every one of you that kind of information season in and season out. If you have that kind of cooperation with the state monitor advocate or the workforce agency within the state, you know, you may not know ahead of time, but you should be able or in contact enough to know all the activities during the season.
That's a great point, Luis. Thank you for bringing that up. And I think that that's the whole point of this series that we have been working with all of you in collaboration with you is to really identify those opportunities for collaboration. And the more we understand how each of us work in the different organizations that support farm workers, the stronger our partnerships can be. And of course, the greater impact we can have. So again, thank you so much on behalf of the Ag Worker Task Force, Rachel Gonzalez-Henson, who introduced and welcomed everyone today. I want to thank you, Luis, and Jeremy and Timmy for an outstanding presentation. And we invite everyone to join us on June 10th to hear more about how and this is going to be a great model, right? It's a great model for us to be able to replicate across many more states, but we'll hear about how Arizona and Connecticut have done such an outstanding job of creating those partnerships. So thank you so much. And